Do you ever feel like you're caught in a loop with God? One day you're full of fire, you're ready to obey, pray, to show up boldly, and then the next day you're right back in your head. You're questioning everything, wondering if you're doing it right, if you missed your moment. Or you may honestly even wonder if God is just tired of hearing you ask for the same thing again and again. Well, if you've been stuck in that cycle of wanting to obey God but feeling like you're your own worst enemy, you're not alone. I'm telling you that you're not the only person in this community who is on this specific struggle bus. So today we're going to talk about how to break that cycle. Welcome to the Confident Christian Woman podcast. This is where we tackle questions about things that have been keeping you stuck in unfulfillment, dissatisfaction, or straight up misery. This is where you'll find the help that you need to move forward from confusion, fear, or self-doubt into joy, fulfillment, and peace. This is where we become confident Christian women who not only believe, we obey. And before we dive into today's question, I have a gift for you that goes hand in hand with what we talk about here. It's called the Clarity Roadmap, and it's only a couple of pages long so that it's easy for you to digest, right? It will help you to reflect, to pray, and to take action as you listen along. So grab it at the link in the show notes. All right. Our question today is, what do I do when I want to obey God, but I keep getting in my own way? A lot of times when we're stuck in this type of cycle, we try to shame ourselves out of it, right? We really try and shame ourselves out of it. But please know upfront that I have no intention of shaming you into doing quote unquote better. I'm not here to shame you. This is not about performance, or spiritual or otherwise, and it is not about fixing your self-discipline. What we're doing is unearthing what's really going on underneath this cycle of self-sabotage, and we're going to address the issue of obedience, what it is, what it isn't, and why your desire to obey, even when it's messy, matters to God. So if you have been feeling like you just can't get it together, then this conversation is for you. So let's get to it. Listen to this and maybe you'll recognize yourself in it. I want to obey God, I really do, but I'm inconsistent. Sometimes I'm empowered and I feel ready, but then the momentum disappears and I feel like a broken record, like God should be tired of me by now because I'm tired of me. Does that hit you hard? Whether you've said those exact words or not, the desire of wanting to obey God but feeling stuck in patterns that you just can't seem to break, it can be painful. So what's going on underneath all of that? Well, first of all, it's obvious that you care about honoring God, right? But somewhere along the way, it's obvious that you care because otherwise you wouldn't be struggling. You wouldn't be in this tug of war, all right? I just want to be clear about why that's the first thing we're going to say. So, acknowledge that. You do care about honoring God. But somewhere along the way, the effort of obeying Him started to feel heavier than the hope of what can result if you do obey Him. And that heaviness is often where we start turning on ourselves. We think, if I was just more disciplined, more consistent, more spiritual, maybe then I'd finally just do the darn thing. But when you feel stuck in this loop, it's not always pure disobedience. Sometimes there's a lot more hiding underneath your disobedience. And that is where you'll find victory, when you start to unearth that and to recognize the truth of what is going on under it. Sometimes it's overwhelm. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. Sometimes it's your brain just doing what it does, which is defaulting to what's familiar because the unknown feels risky, even if the unknown promises to be good. wanting to obey God but constantly stalling out, second guessing, kind of hesitating and backpedaling, it's not just about a lack of motivation. It's usually about self-sabotage. And if that is a pattern that you've noticed in your life and in yourself, I'm going to help you to get curious about that today so we can dig up what's really going on, right? Generally, we don't tend to sabotage ourselves because we're lazy or we're rebellious. We tend to sabotage ourselves. Hear me now. We tend to sabotage ourselves because something in us believes that success or freedom or obedience or even healing will cost us something that we are not ready to give up. Self-sabotage usually shows up when we are afraid of being exposed or rejected or abandoned or even transformed. It might sound nuts, but it is true. So what might you be afraid to lose if you follow through on what it is that you know that God is calling you to do? You're afraid to lose something. It's why you keep sabotaging yourself. So what is it that you're afraid to lose? Maybe you fear that if you obey God and step out, the people who love you won't understand, and that can threaten your sense of belonging, right? Or maybe deep down you believe that you're not good enough to be used by God. So rather than risk looking like a fool or failing, you don't bother to try at all. Or maybe you're scared to move forward because then the stakes get higher, and so does your vulnerability. Because as the stakes get higher, you got to get more vulnerable, right? And here's one more layer for you. Sometimes we think we're pleading with God to help us to obey Him, but really we're asking Him to make obedience painless and comfortable. But obedience is not always convenient or painless or comfortable. Very often it costs you something. And your beautiful, safety-driven brain wants you to keep safe from anything that feels like risk. And that's why we can feel stuck. Part of us wants to obey, and another part is trying to protect us from what obedience might cost us. And here is something else that we really don't want to talk about, but we need to, because you don't recognize it's happening, but it is. When you keep breaking your word to yourself, when you keep saying, I'll pray tomorrow, or I'll obey next time, or I'll start fresh on Monday, when you keep breaking your word to yourself, you slowly start to lose trust in yourself. You start to erode trust in yourself. Just like when somebody breaks their word to you and you lose trust in them, you erode your trust in yourself every single time you break your word to yourself. You are undermining your relationship with yourself. So it's not only discouragement that you're feeling, you're also feeling the weight of broken self-trust. And when that trust is gone, even the smallest step can feel like a mountain, because deep down, you're not sure if you will show up for you anymore. But there is hope. Because God can rebuild trust with you, and He can rebuild trust in you. One tiny act of integrity at a time. Integrity. Not because you're proving something, but because He's healing something in you. So, what if we could see self-sabotage? We see ourselves just constantly sabotaging ourselves. And instead of looking at it as failure, and instead of looking at ourselves with exasperation, what if we look at it as a flashing neon sign that is trying to get our attention and say to us, there is something deeper here that you need to look into. Let's visit with Paul in Romans 7. He says, I really don't understand myself. For I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. Then in verses 18b to 19, he says, I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. Paul is describing that split inside of all of us. It's a tug of war between our desire and our follow through, right? Remember that this is not some rookie believer we're talking about. This is Paul, the same Paul who wrote a good portion of the New Testament. So that tug of war inside of you is not new. But look at what Paul doesn't say in any of those verses or in any of the verses around him. You can read the whole chapter. He doesn't say it anywhere. What he doesn't say is, I gave up. And what he doesn't say is, so God gave up on me. He doesn't say any of that. In verse 24, he asks, who will deliver me? And then he immediately answers that question in verse 25. Thank God. The answer is in Jesus Christ our Lord. And that is the heart of it. Deliverance from this cycle of self-sabotage that you're stuck in does not start with perfection on your part, because that will never happen. There's no perfection. You're human, like all of us. Not one of us is perfect, and not one of us can achieve perfection. Instead, it starts with honesty about where you're stuck, where you're scared, where you're tired, or where you're unsure. And then in Romans 8 verse 1, Paul shows us the result of that kind of honesty. It says, so now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Jesus Christ. To Christ Jesus. No condemnation. Zero. None. Not even when we look back to the same struggle again. God's mercy, it just never runs out. It just does not run out. It doesn't run out just because your momentum ran out. It doesn't. So let's shift the question that you're asking. Instead of, why can't I just get it together? Or why do I keep sabotaging myself? Try asking yourself these questions instead. And again, no rhetorical questions on this podcast. We don't ask rhetorical questions around here. We ask questions that are meant for you to answer for yourself, to unearth the truth, because it's the truth that will set you free. So here we go. What would I have to confront or give up if I actually followed through on what God is calling me to? What hidden fear is being protected by my hesitation? What fear keeps pulling me back from the things that I know that God has asked me to do? What part of me believes that I'm not qualified to obey God? In what ways have I confused perfection, like I have to do it perfectly, with obedience? What story am I telling myself about failure? My past failures that makes me afraid to start again? And what would it look like to walk in obedience to God from a place of love and surrender instead of from pressure or shame? Now, please know that these are not judgment questions, because self-condemnation is never going to lead you to obedience, okay? Self-condemnation is just going to keep you stuck in that loop, that cycle. Instead, these questions are meant to give you the opportunity to be honest. And that is what can lead you to obedience. These questions can lead you into deeper intimacy with God. That's the kind of intimacy where the weakness that you're feeling is an opportunity for transformation. So as your action step this week, I want you to try something. I want you to identify, just put your finger on the instruction or the call that God has given you, the one that keeps coming back, the one where you keep circling around to it, but you don't follow through on it. I want you to put your finger on it, identifying it, and then call out the fear that is standing in your way, right? Write it down, pray over it, and ask God, what is one small way that I can move forward today, even if I'm still afraid? It doesn't have to be dramatic or huge. You do not have to go from stuck to like sprinting, right? It just has to be real. Just one courageous, honest, God-partnered small step. This simple step can be your seed of obedience. Not because you're trying to earn something from God, but because you're practicing trusting in Him and you're starting to re-establish a relationship of trust with yourself. I cannot say enough how important that broken trust is, how important it is for you to recognize the impact that the broken trust that you have with yourself is having on you, on your life. That broken trust is causing more havoc than you realize. And until you acknowledge it and until you face it and confront it, it's gonna keep wreaking havoc on your life. All right. You already have a lot to ponder based on those questions, those kind of reframing questions that I shared with you. But you can go even deeper still with a prayer prompt that I'm about to give you, right? So you've probably been fasting and praying for the strength to follow through, but try and pray this instead. And I mean, pray it from the heart if you're serious. Lord, please show me what I'm afraid of. Reveal what it is that I've been trying to protect through my hesitation, and help me to trust you enough to move forward even when it's uncomfortable. Like, let that open up an honest conversation between you and him. And remember that a conversation is not a one-way thing. It is not you throwing out a bunch of words to God. It is you speaking and then you getting quiet and listening to what it is that he is saying to you. All right? Oh my goodness, that was a lot. That was a lot, right? It was a lot, and it was probably very uncomfortable, and maybe it was even painful, but it is necessary. Like, it's necessary if you want to dig up and like really deal with all the gunk that has been clogging up your forward motion. So if you have been stuck in a loop of I want to obey but I just cannot seem to, you need to remember that obedience isn't really about willpower. It's about trust in God and in yourself. And trust takes time, especially when it has been broken. You want to honor God, and you're ready to learn to get how to get out of your own way. And that desire to obey is your biggest asset right now. Even if it's still tangled up with your fear and your fatigue with yourself, just tired of yourself. Just tired of being in this loop. Your desire to obey is a huge asset. So if you feel like you're getting in your own way, remember that you're not a broken tape recorder. Just pin and repeat to God, help me, help me, help me. It's like you're not the broken tape recorder that you think you are. You're a work in progress, and God never grows tired of you. If today's episode stirred something in you, whether it was hope or clarity or even a little nudge from God, don't forget to download the Clarity Roadmap. It's a free guide to give you a quick jump start out of feeling stuck. You can print it, pray through it, or you can use it as a journaling companion if you want. Remember that you do not have to have all the answers. You only need your one next step. And this free roadmap is a great place to start. To get it, all you need to do is click the link in the show notes.